Sorry, we're running a little late this afternoon. We had a couple of important meetings, but it's good to see everybody. And I guess we will start off with just making a note that Councilman Batoka is joining us online, and I believe Councilman Katz will be joining us online as well, if he's not already there. So on that note, I will start off with page 11, Chief McCullough. Chief here? Oh, absolutely. Although I think the chief is a little taller. The Smokey and the Bandit joke. Does Colonel Conger know that? Yeah. Forensic Trade Analysis Services.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the council. The police department is here today with the administration requesting approval of a contract with RJ Lee Group to provide forensic trace analysis services for gunshot residue testing on an as-needed basis. Contract commences upon council approval, continues for 1 year, and will renew automatically for 4 additional 1-year periods with the option to extend the initial term or any renewal term for an additional 120 days. Contract does not specify a maximum compensation for the initial 1-year term. The compensation may not exceed $173,000 for the entire 5-year and 4-month term. The gunshot residue testing, of course, is done on an as-needed basis. Unit prices range as low as $425 to as high as $1,225, depending upon the number of gunshot residue samples being tested and the methods being utilized. A previous contract for similar services was approved in September of 2018, and this particular contract was again approved through the competitive bid process. RJ Lee was the sole bidder in this particular case.
Okay, thank you, Colonel. Any questions or comments from the members? Hearing none, thank you very much, Colonel.
Thank you very much.
Next, we'll move on to page 14, Kevin Reed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and council members. Fiscal Matter 2 is a request to approve 6 contracts that will be utilized countywide to provide temporary staffing services for county agencies for when there's a need due to vacancies or other specialized requests on a temporary basis. These contracts we are asking approval on are replacing 6 contracts that are currently expiring that were approved in the fall of 2018. 2 of these are new vendors. The 6 contracts are Abacus Corporation, Athena Consulting LLC, Gladenia Incorporated, doing business as Swift Staffing, Kennedy Business Services LLC, Mary Craft and Associates Incorporated, and Premier Staffing Source Incorporated. These contracts were selected through a competitive bid process based on low pricing, experience, best qualified out of 41 responses that were received. And in the RFP, there were 3 main categories that we were looking for as far as job classification. That was clerical, health and human services, and general skilled and unskilled labor. The contract term is for 1 year upon council approval and contains 4 1-year renewal options, and funding for these is estimated to be approximately $6.5 million over the 5-year, 4-month total term, depending on usage. There was a 25% MWBE participation requirement. All of these proposed contractors met this, and we're pleased that one contractor, Gladenia, actually exceeded it at 40%, and 4 of these 6 contractors met this goal as MWBE primes. And I'm happy to answer any questions about these contracts.
Okay, thank you, Director Reed. Are there any questions or comments from the members? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Yep, wait a second. Councilman Batoka?
one quick, Mr. Reed. Reed, do we have the ability to make permanent county jobs, um, rather than filling these jobs with temporary employees?
Yes, sir, Councilman, great question. We do, and this bid was designed around, we used to have a 6-month waiting before we'd have to pay a fee, and now that's reduced to 60 days. So it really is a great pipeline to have folks come in that want to look for a permanent placement and to, of course, go through our HR process.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reed.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman Patoka. Any additional questions or comments from the members? Okay. We'll now move on to page 18. Lawrence Milkinson.
Good afternoon,
All right,
Chair.
Able County Auditor.
Good afternoon, Chairman Jones and members of the council. I am here to present the contract with Sage Policy Group to provide economic analysis, personal income forecasting, and discussion facilitation services for the council's spending affordability and economic advisory committees. The contract commences upon council approval, continues for 1 year, will renew automatically for 3 additional 1-year periods with the option to extend the initial or renewal terms an additional 180 days. Compensation is limited to $3,309 per quarter and may not exceed $52,944 for the entire term. The contract was competitively procured, and there is a 5% MWBE participation requirement.
Okay. Are any questions or comments from the members? Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Milkinson. Now we'll move on to appointment to the Board of Appeals. Marks?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. I'm honored to recommend the appointment of Bill Paulshock to the Board of Appeals from the 5th District. Mr. Paulshock, who is here today, has owned and operated Bill's Seafood and Catering Company since 1979, employing more than 1,500 employees throughout Baltimore County. He's been closely involved in community and recreational activities over 5 decades, including the construction of Angel Park, and has consulted state and federal lawmakers on aquaculture and seafood issues, and was recently inducted into Perry Hall High School Hall of Fame. I'm delighted to recommend Mr. Paulshock for this appointment, which would handle zoning, development, and personnel appeals cases. Mr. Paulshock not only has a strong business background, but has interacted with thousands of people over the years, giving him good common sense and real community experience. That is the type of person I want to see on the Board of Appeals. Thank you. He's here today.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. And if Mr. Paulshock don't mind coming up to the witness seat. How are you, sir?
Very good, very good.
It's always good to see you. If you don't mind, share a little bit of information with us about yourself.
Well, David said quite a lot, but I've been in business for 44 years, managing over 1,300, 1,500 people in that time. But I've been very active in the community, Baltimore County resident. What I do is listen, and that's the most important part with people. I've been fortunate to help our community in a lot of special ways that they ask to help or to help stop. Been very active with state policies that people across the state has asked me to help, whether it's a community issue or a business issue. Work closely with former Comptroller Francho and getting our kids back to school after Labor Day. But the most important part of that plan was to get businesses across the state to survive. And just recently, I worked with Senator Kathy Klausmeyer and Carl Jackson, Delegate Jackson, and the farmers had a Barbaco loan program that helped them out tremendously The watermen had nothing. They were dying. And with working with them, we built a Watermen's Marbeko loan program for the state, got it approved, not only helped the watermen across the bay, but businesses in the seafood industry across the state. And just recently, I worked with Congress, their congressman, and Governor Moore and Governor Hogan, in putting in the Magnuson-Stevenson Fishery Act and the Interjudicial Management Fishery Act for the state of Maryland. It was never done before. We applied it. And with those efforts, we are helping not only everybody who enjoys the Chesapeake Bay, but the industry itself. What I am is not a lawyer. I just listen. But the nice thing about the Board of Appeals, in the past, they used to have community activists, someone who has business knowledge and community knowledge. And David's father was a great example of that. But the best thing about the Board of Appeals, I'll be able to listen, apply what I can, and any question I have on law, just like what I did with getting some of these things passed through the state and through Congress, is I have a lawyer, 2 other lawyers sitting on that panel that I'll be able to ask. And I think I'll be a good asset for the people of Baltimore County and for the business of Baltimore County. So I hope I get the opportunity to serve. I want to thank David Marks for inducting me to it. And I really hope to make Baltimore County proud. I'm sitting on that board.
Well, thank you so much for, number one, your willingness to serve. Appreciate all the service you have provided to the community thus far, and I'm sure you're going to serve the Board of Appeals extremely well. So thank you for your willingness to step up, and I thank you, Councilman Marks, for making the appointment. Any additional questions or comments from the members?
One quick comment, Chair.
Yes, Councilman Ertel.
Bill, we know that I'm excited to sit up here and hopefully definitely favorable appointment. I just know you bring a pragmatic and practical approach to the Board of Appeals, and having managed employees all these years, you have a sense of HR as well, and I think you'll be a great addition to the Board of Appeals. So I'm excited to vote next week.
Thank you, Councilman Orzel.
Any additional questions or comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Batok?
Mr. Paulshock, did Councilman Marks indicate that you've been inducted into the Perry Hall Student Hall of Fame?
Yes, I did. I thought I got inducted for my sports ability because I played not only ball but semi-pro ball for 10 years. But when David said I got that for community award, it was even more of an honor. So
That's great. I was just wondering, isn't Councilman Marks a member of that Perry Hall Hall of Fame? Student Hall of Fame?
a lot of great men and women, for sure.
Well, we inducted not only Mr. Paulshock, but Melanie Updike, who's a longtime guidance counselor, but also Dee Camelli, Major Camelli from our police department. So it was a very good class this year.
Yes, it was.
Great. Thank you. Look forward to your appointment.
Yes, sir.
Okay, are there any additional questions or comments from the members? Thank you very much, Mr. Paulshock, and I take it we'll see you Monday, maybe?
As soon as you let me know, I'll be there.
All right, we'll see you Monday.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to what we're going to do now. We're going to go to page 1 and 3 for bills 8323 and 8423, both of which are somewhat similar. One is for the code, and one is for the charter. What I'll do, I'll start off with County Attorney James Benjamin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. I'm James Benjamin, County Attorney. I'm here to present items 83-23 and 84-23 for your consideration. I'd like to make a few opening remarks and then turn the floor over to my esteemed colleague, Ms. Kimberly Roughton. In October 2021, the Blue Ribbon Commission on Ethics and Accountability was established by executive order to perform a comprehensive review of Baltimore County's existing ethics laws and the Office of Inspector General statute. The commission was made up of various subject matter experts, including legal experts, nonprofit leaders, the chair of the Baltimore County Ethics Commission, members of the judicial branch, and others deeply engaged in investigative and administrative work, as well as the furtherance of transparency and good government. These thought leaders examined policies and best practices from other jurisdictions and levels of government to assess the needs of the office, with the goal to recommend changes that support an OIG, or Office of Inspector General model, that's sustainable into the future. The commission issued their final report in February of this year, and since then the administration, along with our legislative partners, have taken steps to implement these recommendations, culminating in the two bills currently before you for consideration. So with that, I would turn the floor to Ms. Roughton.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Benjamin.
Thank you.
And if you guys give me 1 second.
Oh, yep, zoom in, please.
Get rid of that.
My good side, thank you.
You're welcome.
Council Bill 8323 would place the Office of the Inspector General and certain provisions and powers governing the OIG into the charter, as recommended by the Blue Ribbon Commission. Mirroring the OIG section of the code, the included provisions would establish the office, outline the appointment and removal process of the IG, describe the qualifications of the IG, and the term of office for the IG. In line with the recommendations, the charter amendment also protects the OIG budget and sets a public process in the case of a reduction that's necessary. The bill language makes clear that the OIG staff are county staff and subject to county personnel laws. As with any other charter amendment, if approved, this item would go to county voters in 2024 for their consideration. Council Bill 8423 makes changes to the OIG section of the code. This bill aggregates additional recommendations from the Blue Ribbon Commission and represents a balance between accountability measures and protective provisions for the OIG. Changes to the current OIG statute include aligning references to fraud, waste, and abuse, so the charge of the office is consistent throughout the code, clarifying that the term of office for future inspectors general is 4 years, explicitly stating that the OIG is subject to county personnel laws and staff are considered county employees, protecting the OIG budget and setting a public process in the case that reductions are necessary, ensuring access to outside counsel to avoid a conflict of interest, requiring OIG policies and procedures to be published on the website and available to the public, training public officials on the functions and processes of the OIG, and finally, the subpoena piece, reducing the waiting period on issuing subpoenas from 90 to 30 days and outlining explicitly the power to issue subpoenas for documents outside of county government. These alterations to the OIG statute are all pulled, many verbatim, from the critical work of the Blue Ribbon Commission on Ethics and Accountability. We are grateful for all of the stakeholders who participated in that process, and I want to say thank you to all who added their voice to this conversation to move the Office of the Inspector General forward. Happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments from the members? Hearing none, I know we have a couple of speakers. And we'll start off with Ms. Kelly Madigan, our Inspector General. How are you doing today, Ms. Madigan? Good, good. As you know, we're going to be doing 83 and, what is it, both bills together, 83 and 84.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here and speak in support of both of these bills. Both of these bills will help ensure that the Office of the Inspector General is successful far past my term. It's really important to have it moved to the charter. It's a best practice, and it was recognized by the Blue Ribbon Commission. I'm very pleased to say I support all of the items contained in both the bills, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the members? Yes,
Yes, Mr.
sure.
Hi, Councilman Crandall. I'm good. How are you?
All right, thanks. I'm not going to throw my colleagues under the bus, but I might have been the only person that has read it. And that's the Green Book.
Oh, sure. Good for you.
And,
Congratulations.
well, I had insomnia. No, and you explained to me that it is the Green Book is
Yes.
for IGs and
Yes.
how they conduct their investigation.
Yeah, it was important to me when I first started as a new office to be a member of a larger association. So what you're talking about is the principles and standards for inspectors general's offices that the association puts out. And they have lots of different colors. There's a red one, a yellow one, a green one. The green one's for investigations.
So how, given green and the other colors that I haven't read, how do you feel that this legislation, both pieces, the charter and the code piece, how do they measure up to those industry standards? What might be put out in the Green Book or something that I may have missed?
Well, I think that the Blue Ribbon Commission recognized that there are best practices, which is what the Green Book recommends. The AIG also has model legislation. And so the Green Book talks about how the standard processes and procedures as to how to conduct investigations. And that's one of the first things that we have in our policies and procedures that say we follow the Green Book. But in terms of like the legislation, the association has model legislation. And I think that there are pieces in both of these bills that are consistent with best practices and are consistent with that best practice model legislation. For example, moving it to the charter is very important for the establishment of the office long term. The office can't be removed because it's in the charter. It's got a place in county government. I think that there are pieces on the current bill that aren't being changed and are consistent with the best practices.
Sure. Any additional questions or comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilman Patoka.
I don't know if this is a question for Ms. Madigan or for the administration, but I was just wondering if are there any recommendations that were made by the Blue Ribbon Commission that are not being included in the proposals today?
Is that a question for me?
Thank you.
I'm not sure. I guess for you and or the administration, whoever is best able to answer that question.
Well, I can start. The Blue Ribbon Commission made 20 recommendations. Some of those recommendations were already implemented. I believe some of their recommendations did not pertain to the actual language of the code, so they're not included. But to the extent that they pertained to the code, I believe they are included.
I think that's right. I would just add that I think that there were some that were kind of administrative. Yeah. But I would concur with Ms. Madigan for the most part.
There are other recommendations that aren't in these two bills before the council.
Are these items that, let's say, peer Inspector General office, let's say Baltimore City's Inspector General's office, that abilities that Ms. Cummings, I think it's Cummings, not an S on that, Ms. Cummings may have, that Baltimore County Inspector General may not have before this bill and then after this bill?
I guess I'm going to ask you to repeat your question.
Okay, sure. Is it you couldn't hear me, or just to repeat it? Well,
I
look,
just
let
want
me-
to make sure I understand it. I think you're asking if there's any powers that the city IG has that the county IG wouldn't have after this bill?
Correct, given that, the city's IG seems to, it's been around for a while. It's kind of a seasoned IG office, no disrespect, to your office, just that
None taken.
it's been in place longer. And so, given that level of maturity, are there things that Ms. Cumming can do that our Inspector General cannot do?
I don't think so. I think that I think Ms. Cumming in some instances perhaps has more direct access to records, but I think that that might speak more to the fact that that office has been in existence for longer and they have more of an established practice. I mean, that is something that I'm working closely with the administration to make sure that we have that, because that was a Blue Ribbon Commission recommendation.
Access to records?
Well, we have access to records. The statute says an IG's office should have full and unrestricted access to those records. That's part of oversight. One of the recommendations was that whenever possible, we have direct access to records. And that's a work in progress.
Okay, so that's something we'll continue. Access to records is something that may not be included in the proposals before us, but something that you feel confident that the administration in your office is working towards.
Yes, that's certainly where I'm coming from, yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Madigan. I think you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
It's a very difficult job. Again, as I've shared in the past, it's a job that, it's a brand new office. And so typically in government, in various jurisdictions, including Baltimore County, change is sometimes difficult to come by. Even, our county executive has implemented a significant amount of change. And I think it's for the good. And but sometimes people in the jobs that we have are used to doing the things the same way. And so, but we do have to adjust. And so, just want to thank you for what you do, and I appreciate your candid responses to my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Patoka. Any additional questions or comments from the members? Councilman Marks?
I just want to thank you very much for your service.
Oh, thank you.
Councilman Ertel?
One quick question. Hi, Ms. Madigan.
Hi,
Today.
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Quick question. One of the pieces in the legislation, I'm not sure if it's currently, but there's access to be able to subpoena county records, of course,
Mhm.
and there's outside the county records.
Uh-huh.
Could you give us an example of what something like that might be,
Sure.
just for clarification?
Absolutely. Can I give you a little background on it first? And then I'll give you an example. So it's actually, it's considered part of the model legislation that an Inspector General office have the ability to issue subpoenas. And under the previous statute, we have the ability to issue subpoenas. You would never need to subpoena a county record because you have the right to full and unrestricted access of the records. So the only entity that you would subpoena would be a non-county record. But when the bill was originally, the current statute, they put a waiting period on that. So the idea would be if, for example, I wanted to subpoena some records from a county contractor. Under the current statute, I would have to make a request. May I please have these records? Then I would have to wait 90 days, and then I could issue a subpoena. So one of the things that I testified publicly to the Blue Ribbon Commission about was that it doesn't really make any sense to have a waiting period on a subpoena. First point is it's not consistent with best practices. If you have the ability to issue a subpoena, you just issue that subpoena. There's no trigger, if you will, after 90 days. The second reason, and part of the reason why it's a best practice that you don't have that, is it would make no sense if you were investigating a contractor and we're going to subpoena information from them, that you would ask them for it, wait 90 days, possibly for that, whatever you were asking for to then be destroyed or removed, no longer accessible. The idea behind a subpoena for lawyers is that that's you're legally demanding of something. So it doesn't make sense to ask first when you have the ability to legally demand. And the way the original bill was written, we had the ability to subpoena records, again, because all other county records we have full and unrestricted access to. I just thought it was important, and one of the things I testified publicly about and was one of the recommendations was that language be clarified, that there not be that 90-day waiting period. And they clarified that, and they also said, to the extent that you ever would have to subpoena a county record, I've testified before the Blue Ribbon Commission, and I'll say it again here, I mean, it would never be my intention to do that. But if you have to do that, they changed the waiting period from 90 days to 30 days. Did that answer your question?
Good background.
So, you know, a couple of the reports that we've done, we did a report about, one of the reports we did was about a contractor who had signed under penalties of perjury an affidavit saying that they had paid an MBE $400,000 when in fact they had paid the MBE $40,000. And I guess, Councilman Patoka, kind of back to your original point, Ms. Cummings in Baltimore City, she doesn't have a 90-day delay on her subpoena ability. So in the course of her investigation of this company, she subpoenaed banking information, checks from the company to support the payments for the city contract. Because she had those, she wrote the report and was then able to give us that information. If we had done that report and we had wanted to on our own subpoena that information, we would have had to ask the company for those checks, the checks that they wrote out to the MBE. That wouldn't be a county record. And then we would have to wait 90 days to issue a subpoena. So I think, you know, and listen, if you're going to issue a subpoena, those can be judicially enforced. So if I issued a subpoena and somebody didn't want to comply, I would have to go to court and I would have to establish why the subpoena is necessary and why it relates to fraud, waste, and abuse. So you would never issue a subpoena without having a good faith basis that it's going to affect the work. And that's not something that is, we don't just kind of issue them like, you know, all the time. That they're done intentionally, and if you've made the decision to do it, you shouldn't have to wait 90 days. Mm-hmm. Did that answer your question?
Okay, are there any additional questions or comments from the members? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Ms. Madigan.
Thank you very much.
In.
Pleasure seeing everyone.
Sure.
Turn this off.
Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our next speaker is Peter Richkes. Ms. Richkes, you are a panelist. You may unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Chairman Jones
Yes.
and members of the council. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking these measures up for your vote, and appreciate the administration for implementing the recommendations of the Ethics and Accountability Commission to strengthen the county's Office of Inspector General. I do support and ask that you support Bills 8323 and 8424. However, I ask that 8324 be amended to include language in the proposed new section of the charter to strengthen the existing provisions in the code governing the Office of the Inspector General that, as Ms. Madigan has already explained, calls for full and unrestricted access to all county records. And there's an easy way to do this. You can just mirror the language already in the charter that is applicable to the county auditor. I believe it's section 311 of the county charter that provides all records and files, blah, 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 open to the inspection of the county auditor. So my suggested amendment is to mirror that language and include a parallel provision in the new OIG section. The suggested amendment recognizes that unimpeded access to records by the County Inspector General is absolutely essential, just as it is for the county auditor. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rickus. It's always good to hear from you. Any additional questions, comments from the members? Hearing none, we will move on to page 5, Bill 8523, Councilman Batoka and Marks. Councilman Batoka or Marks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this bill is pretty straightforward, and it relates to the posting of notices on public hearings for a variance, special hearing, or special exemption. And it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if you noticed that in many cases, since there's limited guidance on how to post a sign on land use issues, the sign is typically posted parallel to the road, which is difficult to see if you are driving. So this legislation, I thank Councilman Marks for co-sponsoring. It requires that a sign be posted perpendicular to the road and that it be double-sided so that it is visible if you're driving or walking. It's kind of typically what I think most of us would do with a campaign sign, is we wouldn't put it parallel to the road, but we would put it perpendicular to the road so it strengthens visibility. So that's what Bill 8523 what we'd like to do is to have the signs perpendicular to the road and double-sided. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Councilman Marks? We good? Any questions, comments from the members? Yes.
This is Bill 85. I just wanted to note that we are on 85, correct?
Yes.
Jason Vittori did register to speak. However, I haven't been able to find him on the,
I found
he's here in person.
behind it.
Mr. Chairman, members, Jason Vittori, Smith, Gilday & Schmidt, I appreciate you having me here today. I applaud Councilman Patoka and Councilman Marks for introducing legislation. I think notice is obviously a very admirable thing we want to do when it comes to all these hearings. The issue that I'd like to speak to you about, although there's many things about the signs, I'd be more than happy to have a much further in-depth discussion, is that this bill is going to go into effect 14 days from the vote next Monday at the legislative session. At such time, people will have filed petitions, in fact, or had signs posted. There's hearings coming up. By the time those hearings manifest themselves in a decision and they become final and non-appealable after a 30-day appeal period, somebody could institute a challenge to the effect of, you did not properly file the notification provisions because this has gone into effect and it could be retroactively applicable. So my concern is that this goes into effect prospectively from the date that it will go into effect, which is 14 days from next Monday, according to the language now. I don't think it makes any sizable changes to the actual legislation, the intent. It just gives people notice. I can note that most of the approved sign posters for the county that are on that list are unaware that this bill was introduced, and if they're posting signs like, say, my sign poster is tomorrow, I want to make sure the sign's compliant
And I'd rather follow the rules now when the law hasn't gone into effect and not have an issue down the line. And I think that would give that 2 weeks from the vote next Monday for that to be prospectively applicable to any petition for zoning hearing filed after that point. That's all.
Okay. All right, questions or comments from the members?
Just a question.
Councilman Marks?
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Vittori, I think your point is well taken. Mr. Boswick, do you have any comments to make about that? The prospective nature of the bill?
My only comment, Mr. Marks, would be that the very nature of the bill and its effective date would indicate that it is prospective. There is no retroactive application or language to that effect, so it will take effect 14 days after its enactment, which is essentially the date that the county executive would sign it if he so chooses. So it won't take effect until that day. I'm not sure what else we can do to make that clear.
Can we change the effective date? Maybe 30 days?
Or we could do it, well, Adam just suggested, we could do a date certain, but the reason we do 14 days is because the county executive, we give the bills to the county executive within 2 days, then he has 10 days from presentment to sign them. So it could be the 3rd day, it could be the 10th day. So that's why we sort of float the effective date as 14 days from the date of enactment, in other words, the date of signature. We always state what the effective date is on the signature page of the bill, and on the back page, which is that chart on the back of the bill, the Crandall resolution that requires us to have what the vote was for any amendments and things of that nature. We always put what the effective date is as well, what that actual day is. So I don't want to belabor the point, but I think it's pretty well spelled out.
Okay. Mr. Gutwald, I see you're here. This would be under your purview, right, to notify the sign posters and make sure they know about the requirements? Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Vittori, I think, has something that, what do you have to, in response to this?
Yeah, I'd love to speak up. And again, I saw this bill was introduced the previous legislative session, and the next day when it got published, I emailed both the councilmen who are sponsoring it, the Secretary of the Council, and also the Office of Administrative Hearings to get their perspective. Because one, I'm interested in hearing what the Office of Administrative Hearings says, and also, with all due respect to kind of what the Director of Permits, Approvals, and Inspections says, this ultimately comes down to an issue for our appellate courts to decide as to the retroactive applicability of a bill, in the sense that you're making a substantive change to the law, which, in my estimation, requiring the posting is a substantive change. This could have implications to everything that people are, you're getting relief from. Some would say you didn't give the proper notice because by the time you actually got your approval, notification requirements had changed. It's not a matter of you file it with one person, it gets to the county. This is when we're posting it. So my change is not asking for a drastic thing. I hear people talk about the term precedent and what's going on. There is precedent. In the precedent, the effective date just merely means that law is now in effect, and it can be retroactively applicable, as I believe this is. And I'm not asking for a major change. What I'm merely asking is that it applied to any petition filed after that date, which I think could be cleared up merely by adding it goes into effect on this date and is applicable to any petition for zoning hearing filed after this date. Seeing as we're only changing the sign regulations for zoning petitions, we're not doing any corresponding change to the development plan hearing case sign regulations. And a much broader discussion about notification, I'd be happy to have another time. I tried to have this discussion offline. Nobody got back to me, so I'm here speaking in person today. Yes?
I think it's a valid point.
We can certainly address it, even though the bill itself makes no mention of retroactivity whatsoever. and it is not retroactive, but we can certainly address that.
The term precedent
Mr. Chair?
CMPs all the time, and that is not precedent. This, in fact, is precedent, because the appellate courts have decided that a substantive change in a law is retroactively applicable on a zoning context.
Mr. Vittori brought CZMP. Mr. Gutwald, when will the CZMP start posting? You know, or that's planning, I know, but I thought you'd be doing it. January, okay. I know. Okay.
The signs are going out in January for those that didn't hear that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Councilman Patoka?
What we kept it simple, and we modified it to begin on January 1, 2024. That would make it clear. I am concerned, Mr. Vittori, that we are limited as to the land use, the changes specified, because really we try to be transparent. And so I think it's critically important that all of our notifications have the best level of visibility, so that they all should be, our CZMP, all of this should be perpendicular to the road. It's only fair to communities that they see what's happening in their neighborhood. So I do believe on this, and I think we should keep it, we should have it at a time frame that does work. I did read your materials, by the way, Mr. Vittori, and I saw that some of your clients are spending up to $2,000 on a sign. That's a lot of money for a sign, because one area that myself and my colleagues understand is signage ability, and I would venture to say that none of us spend $2,000 on a specific sign.
So I took some time to read the policy manuals and the requirements for posting and different things that are in there, and that there are only a certain number of approved sign posters. And while I don't have the asking price for each sign poster, let's just say a sign costs about $125. If you're asking for special exception relief for a use such as a gas station or a child care center, and in addition you need special hearing relief, and then you also need some variance relief. The child care facilities are particularly onerous as far as their requirements and having a yard to play in and different things. Sometimes that one sign turns into 4 signs, and since you have to post 2 signs, 2 times 4 is 8 signs, and if you have 8 signs times $150, and then an additional $100 fee for someone to come back and certify that the signs are still there, yes, you get to $2,500 pretty quickly. That coupled with about $500 for each of those items of relief with a cap of $1,200, if you're trying to open a child care center, there's some pretty big barriers to actually people getting into opening up businesses from a small level. So there are a number of issues. I'd say if you're on a property that only has about 10, 20 feet of frontage and it's not near any other properties, putting 8 signs there really isn't clearing anything up, but it does cost a lot of money. But I think we've delved into a little bit more there's a lot of issues with the posting requirements. Not all of them are the same for the development stuff as they are for the zoning things. But in the context of this, in your first point you made, when it comes to the posting of signage for the actual institution or effective date, as long as the information gets to the sign posters, and I think 2 weeks from the effective date, maybe it's not the filing of the petition, but that any sign posted by that point, whatever the specific thing is, I just want to make sure there's ample time for the message of this bill having gone into effect, and I'd rather it be the effective date that it's signed by the county executive or that 14 days to give them a few more days, that any sign that's posted after that, like a posting requirement, when it's posted, because I'm concerned about all the signs that have been posted. Signs are going to be posted tonight or tomorrow and up until this bill is passed, because I think there is very much a strong likelihood that somebody could raise a challenge in these, and I think that's a complete waste of resources for our Office of Administrative Hearings and frankly, anybody seeking relief, spending a bunch of money to post signs.
Well, given the level of investment on the signs, it's even more important that we maximize visibility of those signs so that the investment is worth it.
And I would say, I don't know if they're going to charge more money to put a second piece of cardboard and a paper sign up against the back of it, but I'm going to take a wild guess and say they are.
yeah, if something's happening in the community, it's fair to communities to let them know what's going on.
Absolutely. Maybe we could modify who the sign posters are and let anybody post signs, and we could come up with a more economical way of doing it.
That's a good idea. We can expand the workforce for that sector.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you very much. A lot of information on the signs. Mr. Vittori, next time, do us a favor. Either look at us or look at the camera.
Sorry.
Look at the screen.
Thank you.
Excuse us. All right. Any additional questions or comments from the members? All right. That's right. That's where we got a production going on here. Thank you very much, Mr. Vittori. Yeah, what are we doing now? Okay. We will move right along to page 6. Bill 86-23, Mr. Ertel.
Thank you, Chair. This bill is really an expansion and a clarification of a bill that was passed in 2020 by Councilman Marks. It's basically a bill that addresses parking on lawns, and we're seeing a lot more of this around my district, and we found that there's a problem with the current bill in that currently are tasked with enforcing parking on private property. So, for instance, I had one of the things that prompted this bill was a person who has decided that she doesn't want to park on the street, even though there's ample parking on the street. She drives across other people's lawns in a row home community, parks in front of the house on the front lawn. Her neighbors attempted to put sticker blocks up, couldn't do it, and she drove over the sticker blocks and caused other issues. But anyway, the police can't go on private property to ticket the vehicle. So what we're attempting to do here is change clarification that code enforcement can enforce this parking on lawns and take it out of the police department purview. Also, that this would fall under the fines of the code. I also look to do this. This is currently only in the Towson precinct. I wasn't necessarily looking to expand this county-wide, but I did have some, I wanted to do it across my district, and then I had specifically a delegate from the west side, Charles Sidnor, and county-wide as well. So I'd like to do this bill in order to, like I said, make it more clear as to who will enforce parking. This is not a temporary situation. This is when getting a new refrigerator or working on their car or something like this, where somebody decided to park on a regular basis. Any questions?
Yep. Any questions or comments from the members? Any questions or comments? Let me see here. I don't think we have any speakers. All right. Well, thank you very much, Councilman Ertel. I guess we'll move on to Bill 87-23. Councilman Ertel, once again.
Yes, I shouldn't have turned my mic off. This is a bill about rental housing licenses. We are asking, we had worked with code enforcement on this as well, and I think Director Gutwald is going to talk about it from the perspective of as well. But this is a bill where we have a lot more rentals in the county. We're actually in the central area of the county, and I know this is happening in other areas. We're reaching rental rates up to about 40% of some neighborhoods, anywhere from 40 to 55%. I have one street in my district that has 82% rentals. Rental housing is needed for those who cannot afford or prefer not to purchase a home, but research indicates that too many rentals in a neighborhood negatively impact property value and quality of life in those communities. Recent sales in Towson and the Lock Raven area show the continuing shift, primarily owner-occupied to investor-owned homes. In fact, last year, more than 1 in 4 home sales in the Towson Lock Raven area were to investors rather than home buyers. So we're seeing a lot more investors who are buying properties to rent them out. Some neighborhoods we're seeing as many as 43% of the home sales were to investors. Over-renting of homes is a growing problem, with many rentals occupied by 4 or 5 or more adults, in violation of the county code of rental properties to no more than 2 unrelated adults. This creates a multitude of problems for neighboring properties and creates a domino effect as neighboring homes go up for sale. Also creates safety concerns, as sometimes tenants are sleeping in basements, bedrooms that have no egress windows or doors. Proving that a home is over-occupied is extremely difficult, with the burden on neighbors who must track license tags and occupants at a home for more than 30 days, testify at a hearing, and face possible retaliation. Over-renting is especially attractive to investors who can charge rents that significantly higher than market rates. We're seeing in Towson many homes that are being rented to students, and I feel like this is predatory, where an owner will rent a house for up to $3,500 sometimes to supposedly 2 students, but they're putting 15 people in the house in order to bring the rents down. It's creating problems like people parking on lawns, constant coming and going. But the whole point of this bill is that right now we require information when you go for a parking permit. We require information about tenants if they're in an ADU. We passed an ADU bill earlier this year where we has an ADU has to but we don't do that for rental properties. And one of the things that we liked about this bill was that it basically just gives code enforcement or rental registration the information about the tenants who were in the property at the time. It's confidential information. It's not shared with anyone. It's kept here at the county. It also gives us the ability that if there's an issue, often the most common code enforcement complaints that we get are trash management and grass cutting. And if we can get to the tenants earlier, because we have their information and we're not going to an out-of-town owner who's in New Jersey or Rhode Island, we can correct those problems quicker. We're hearing from a lot of homeowners and other renters who complaining about the accessory problem, and they often don't get addressed for 6 to 8, 10 weeks. And people are losing faith in government's ability to deal with these kind of issues. So we feel like this will be a tool, and again, very limited use, which is used by code enforcement to check for over-renting, maybe up front to kind of flag it, and then also deal with some of our more common code enforcement, where we can get to the tenant, potentially get a correction done before there has to even be a fine. I've made this a very long explanation, and hopefully there's questions that I can clarify. That's the gist of it.
Thank you very much, Councilman Ertel. Are there any questions or comments from the members? I know we have some speakers, and I would just remind everyone that, feel free to say ditto or copy that or whatever. If you think someone else already said or conveyed your comments, feel free to just do that. Meanwhile, I guess, Ms. Castro, who's our first speaker?
Our first speaker is Pete Gutwald.
Is this the world famous Pete Gutwald? One and only?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Council. Thank you for letting me the opportunity to speak on 8723. For the record, I'm Pete Gutwald. I'm the Director of Permits, Approvals, and Inspections. I just want to raise a couple of questions and concerns from, the implementing agency that I don't, maybe we get clarification or talk about how some of this will be, how we interpret some of the legislation. It's, as Councilman Ertel mentioned, there's a lot of rentals going on throughout the county. Last count I checked with staff, we were closing in on about 20,000 rentals countywide. My question would be, how are we going to roll this out? Bill takes effect, in 14 days. I need clarification that this would be associated, we would start collecting this information with new rentals and renewals of rentals, because the ability from the administrative burden of trying to collect this information within 14 days of all 20,000 existing rental licenses could be problematic. And so it's not clarified in the bill, but are we talking as new licenses come online, as renewals come on, we would collect this information? That seemed like the most pragmatic way to get this information rather than trying to seek it out for all 20,000 existing rentals. The other issue I have identified is that every if the thing is if the unit is unoccupied, every 30 days they must submit whether that it is continued to be unoccupied or occupied. Again, another administrative burden of us, our ability to track that is very difficult for every 30 days that it's unoccupied, and keep track of, are we supposed to be keeping track of that? Are we supposed, what do we do with that information when every 30 days they're notifying us? And I don't have a system in place right now that they can go online and just say, it's still unoccupied, right? It would be a manual process of tracking the occupancy of, I should say the vacancy of that unit rather than the occupancy, because I get it, once they're occupied, they need to tell us. Which raises yet another issue when you talk about, and I know we're trying to address this issue, you have a report coming to you about short-term rentals, but when these tenants are changing every 2 weeks, every week, or whatever, are they supposed to notify us every 30 days that these things have been changed, that the tenant has changed when you're dealing with somebody that's only been in there for 2 weeks, those kinds of things? So that raises a couple of resource issues for us as an administrative burden to implementing the piece of legislation. We get that the documentation of the information is going to be very helpful, recognize the information of who are the tenants and all that good stuff is great. It's just the rollout of it, the administrative burden, checking up on every 30 days if it's unoccupied, that kind of stuff creates additional burdens of administrative processes within the department. And if there's a way, I would make a plea to give us some more time, because I do believe this could be done from a technological standpoint, but we're not there. I got to get with IT to say, okay, let them update this information through the system rather than contacting us every time something happens and changes. So that's my testimony, and I'll take any questions.
Director Gumboldt, I would say we're willing to work with you on all these things. The 14 days, I actually did not.
That's the effective date. That's the same thing the previous speaker spoke to.
That seems ridiculous that that's in there, so we'll figure that. But we're happy to work with you to come up with something that you feel is going to work and it's going to be tangible. It was not meant to be applied to short-term rental. It's merely a regular rental property that potentially is being rented
Right.
for that year or more, which would be.
Yeah, we're coming forward with addressing that issue as well, but right now we treat them one and the same. Administrator.
We had sat down with Adam Whitlock on this, and he thought this would be a great tool, like I said, from a code enforcement.
Information-wise, absolutely, yeah. Getting the information is great.
Know who the tenant is to potentially engage them quicker to be able to correct the problem. Code enforcement often, sometimes the public looks at it as, oh, you're fining me because of such and such. Really, all we're ever looking for in code enforcement is compliance in order to, take care of a problem. And the public often just, when they're complaining, they're looking at a festering issue. They want action as soon as possible. And if we're just trying to tighten things up so that we can come up with better, quicker solutions, hopefully, not always, but to some of the problems that we're having. I mean, just as a anecdotal kind of, I don't know if it's a joke or not, but one of my interns this summer was out in one of my more problematic neighborhoods, and we were out writing down problem properties. They have tall grass, debris in the front yard, furniture in the front, all kinds of different things. And he came back and I said, how was it? And he said, well, it would actually be easier if we just wrote down the properties that weren't a problem. And but it's funny, but it's not. We have neighborhoods that are like that. Unfortunately, the people that live there, both renters and homeowners, their quality of life is diminished because some of these problems are really starting to multiply. And like I said, a good tool that we can use if we can all work it out to figure out what will work best for everyone, and that we make sure that we keep it. Obviously, the information will be kept confidential. We're not selling it to anyone or sharing it with other agencies.
Chair.
Yes.
I just wanted to also note that with regard to this bill, I just wanted to add that and I mentioned this to Councilman Hurtado. I had a couple of concerns relating to potential privacy issues as well as constitutional. Those are things we're looking at. And I know you mentioned the ADUs and the parking piece. We're looking at that legislation as well, and would like to follow up with this group once we've had a chance to complete our review as it relates to these potential privacy and constitutional issues.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? None? We have some speakers, Ms. Belcastro, and once again, thank you, Pete. Same thing, right?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Our next speaker is Sarah Judd. Ms. Judd, you are on as a panelist. You may turn your camera on if you wish and unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm here today to urge you to support Bill 8723. The communities surrounding Towson University have experienced an influx of student rentals as the university has grown in the past 20 years, And the university continues to grow, as evidenced by admitting the largest freshman class in its history in 2023. Now, I've had the privilege of calling Towson Manor Village my home for the past 5+ years, and I'm here today not only as a frustrated resident, but also as a representative from the Towson Manor Community Village Association, where I serve as vice president. As Councilman Ertel mentioned, Towson Manor Village has shifted from a predominantly owner-occupied neighborhood to one comprised of 43% rentals. Only one of the 9 streets in this neighborhood has a percentage of rental properties lower than 25%. My street of Wilden Drive is edging very close to over 30% rentals. Every home listed for sale directly on my street or adjacent is being converted to rentals. There's currently a home for sale right now that is facing that risk. Our issue is not just the number of rental properties, but the number of over-rented rental properties. As stated, county code prohibits renting single-family homes to more than 2 unrelated adults, but often landlords will only put 2 names on the lease and allow additional tenants to live in the house. The rental behind my house is one such case. It's often over-rented to 3 to 4 male college students. Aside from the eyesore of the 2 out-of-state cars parked on what's now mostly a pile of mud in a backyard, my neighbors and I have had more than a few sleepless nights. But more disturbing, we've had incidents of these group renters throwing glass bottles over our back fence well into my yard, directly where my 2-year-old plays. An aggressive retaliation because I removed their trash bags from my trash cans. And this is just one incident of the many that occur on every single street in my community on a weekly basis as a result of these over-rented rentals. My neighbors have faced several threats this year alone over similar, simple neighborly concerns. Proving that there are more than 2 adults living in a home is very difficult, if not impossible. As the councilman mentioned, the burden of reporting is on community members, and it is daunting. Our residents are frustrated, fed up, and many good neighbors choose to leave rather than try to follow the current cumbersome system to report these over-rented homes. While Bill 8723 will not immediately solve every problem of over-rented properties, it will provide much-needed accountability and assistance in tracking, reporting, and holding landlords accountable for these over-rented homes. So I urge you to support Bill 8723. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our next speaker is Greg Bauer. It does not look like Mr. Bauer is on virtually. He did register virtually, so I didn't make a mistake this time. Let me go on to the next speaker. Our next speaker is in person.
Mr. Bauer, if you're there, let us know. We'll put you on.
Our next speaker is Stacy Weiss, who is here in person.
Hey, Ms. Weiss. Hello. Hello.
Hello. My name is Stacy. I live in Towson Manor Village in Towson, and I just wanted to give you a little different perspective from myself. I not only live in Towson across the street from a over-rented property, but I am also a rental property owner in Towson. And rental properties are a business. People should be held accountable to that. It's an undertaking that has benefits to the person who owns the house. It's not a selfless act. I do receive clearly money for my rental, and somebody's paying my mortgage. So it's not something that I should not be held accountable for to regulations within the county. To be a landlord in a community requires following rules. If you want to be a good community member, unfortunately, most of the people who own rental properties do not abide by the rules. They feel as though, I guess, money is a little more important than the rules, and that is partially due to the lack of accountability that we do not have for them. The only burden, as we've heard from most of the people that have said tonight, is on the residents within the community. And as a matter of fact, the house across the street from me, which is rented to 4 people, I called the county to complain, and the reply that I got was, That's very hard to prove. Are you willing to help? And of course I said yes, but that's not the way it should be. This bill will definitely help us. We don't need the information, public, but the fact that it's going to be held private and be available to help with the situation would be nice. And as far as compliance goes, these people are not going to be compliant. They've never been compliant. They need some accountability. And the reason we're in this situation is because of a lack of known compliance. And I, as a landlord, am more than willing to fill out a piece of paper with 2 people's names on it if I have 2 people in my house and send it into the county if that's what you require, because we need this and people need to do what they're supposed to do. It's a business. You're making money. Do what you need to do to make it right for the community and your neighbors at the same time. I really hope that you all will pass this bill, not only for the accountability of the property owner, but for the people that depend on you to pass this bill and help them survive the things that they're going through with these over-rented properties, and to help maybe deter people from doing what they shouldn't be doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
That was the last speaker for this bill, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I have not been able to locate Mr. Bauer.
Okay. Next, we'll move on to page 9, Bill 88-23, zoning regulations. Councilman Crandall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill 8323 would allow for a plastics recycling facility under certain circumstances. And, I've been on this council for 9 years, as I remind everyone, almost every session it seems like. What the philosophy that I've tried to bring is that we have certain authorities as council members and the council as a body to react to opportunities. And when I was approached with this particular opportunity, which would place a plastic recycling facility in our district, I was initially a little bit skeptical, honestly, but I also looked at it as an opportunity to bring novel technology to Baltimore County and approximately, I think, 100 to 150 jobs. I know we have speakers from the company that is proposing this facility in the 7th District, and maybe they can speak to the technology and the job creation aspect, as well as the overall environmental impact to Baltimore County and how the facility could potentially really assist Baltimore County Solid Waste in their efforts to recycle plastics in a more efficient and better way. As I understand it, the technology that the company Republic Services is proposing, the technology allows for a greater percentage of plastics in the marketplace to be recycled, whereas the old technology would approach some of this so that the materials just thrown out into the landfill. New technology, development on direction, new technology would allow for, again, a greater percentage of plastics to be recycled. As you all know, is when I approached on an opportunity like this, my automatic response is go to the community and establish a dialogue with the community and see what the determination is there. And I will hand it to Public Services for their representation. They did an excellent job engaging community leadership and the board of the local community association, the community association leadership, and the association itself.
could open up the landfill and actually go up, over and beyond where the landfill is. Now, there's a provision in the bill that the community wanted, that we made sure was in the draft, that would prohibit a landfill-type operation disposing of municipal waste in the landfill. That would no longer be allowed to do. So I think, we're looking at a lot of different positives here. One is the opportunity that I mentioned regarding bringing technology to Baltimore County, job creation, but also if you look at the bigger picture, what do we do with landfills once they're closed? And I think there's been probably a lot of discussion in the history about that. There's national proposals for capturing methane, turn into energy for big central solar farms. This will actually put a productive use, increasing property value of the property and create income producing good jobs there. So all reasons why I put this legislation for you, and I'm looking for a favorable vote.
Thank you very much, Councilman Crandall. Are there any questions or comments from the members? Hearing none, let's, first of all, I appreciate you bringing this forward, Councilman Crandall, and certainly appreciate Republic Services putting this facility in our area. And why don't we move on to the speaker, Ms. Belcastro?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our first speaker is John Blevins, who is here in person.
Blevins? How are you, sir?
Good, how are you, sir? Mr. Chairman, Councilman, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in support of this bill. Let me start with who I am. My name is John Blevins. I'm the General Manager for Public Services in the Baltimore market. We currently have 4 operating locations in the Baltimore market. We have 185 employees, and we have the Honeygo C&D landfill in Perry Hall, which is in District 5. Republic Services is an environmental services company that provides recycling, solid waste, and environmental solutions. Since 2019, we've spent over $150,000 in community support for numerous charitable organizations. This will be the third of 4 polymer centers we're planning to build. The first is in Las Vegas, which will open in the first week of December this year. The second just broke ground in Indianapolis, and it is scheduled to open the fourth quarter 2024. The Polymer Center we are proposing to develop at Norris Farm Landfill will provide recycling circularity, which is a relatively new term, but we can explain that in further detail. This plant will take plastics from recycling centers on the East Coast, clean, scrub, and produce a finished flake for producing bottles. No more downgrading of plastics that can't be recycled. The covenant we agreed to will permanently close and provide no opportunities to ever reopen Norris Farm Landfill. It is a plant that meets many of the sustainability goals that municipalities like yourselves and corporate America are trying to achieve. It will create a huge investment in jobs in the community. It will be a $150 million plus investment, and it will create 125 plus permanent high-skilled jobs. Why do we need this plant? Baltimore County has been looking at ways to decrease plastic waste and further sustainability goals. The county recently passed a plastics bag ban with goal of reducing waste. This type of facility will make a much larger impact on the use and reuse of plastics in the area. It provides a true environmental benefit to the county. Any questions?
Yes, I will just start by saying, we certainly appreciate the investment, $150 million. And let me make sure I heard you correctly. You said no downgrading of the plastics. Can you explain that? Because I know what it is. I want to make sure everybody else, I want to make sure I heard it right.
I'll give you my explanation. I have my co-worker from our headquarters in Phoenix who is the technical side of it and is actually involvement in building these plants.
It's a big deal.
It is. Basically, what happens with a lot of recycling plastics right now, when they recycle it, they make it into something like carpet. That is what we call downgrading. That carpet can never be recycled. This product, the plastic, once it gets cleaned, scrubbed, and turned into flake, can be reused as bottles, reused to make more bottles. And that cycle can continue. That's why we call it circularity, because you complete the circle, you're reusing the product to make a bottle, and then that bottle, when it comes back, can be cleaned, scrubbed, and turned into flake and go through the whole process. So you're keeping this process of recycling material versus sometimes, a lot of times currently, it's made in other products that will never be able to be recycled again. That's why we feel this is the benefit and the reason we're supporting it as a sustainability company that is trying to improve the environment with these type of structures.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the members?
Yes.
Give me 1 second. Hey, Councilman Marks.
Thank you. Good to see you. I have represented the Honeyco Run landfill since last December.
I understand.
And I represented it from 2010 to 14, and then it was added back to the district. So I'd appreciate getting to sit down with some folks from that facility after the holidays.
Be happy to.
Talking over the issues. So thank you.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the members? Hearing none, thank you very much, Mr. Blevins.
Thank you, sir.
I believe we have another speaker.
Yes, Mr. Chair, our next speaker is Joe Riconosciuto. I tried.
Mr. Chair, members, thank you. My job at Republic Services, I'm the product person in the world of recycling. So my team is responsible for anything that can be made into something else, figuring out how to make that happen, basically. So we handle a lot of waste, organics, et cetera. But in the world of recycling, it's really all about job to be done. So historically, what we've done is we've collected materials, we've made them into kind of like bundles and sent them on downstream to somebody who will make something. Paper, aluminum, some other products are very simple. But plastic is complicated. It's really specific. It's chemistry, right? And it's light, it's durable, it's flexible, it's got all these amazing properties, which is why we use it, but it makes it hard at end of life. We realized a few years ago that the real opportunity is not to manage it as an end-of-life product, to make it into something, but that there's far more value ecologically, economically, if we can turn it back into something like it once was, basically. So that's the nature of this project. What we're really excited about is that it will bring material from pretty broad array of locations together, kind of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, servicing the needs of residential and small business customers. It'll bring it here and turn it into what is, frankly, a scarce material. There's not many people making good recyclate in the world of plastic. There's extraordinary demand for this material. We believe that Baltimore area and Maryland manufacturers will be eager to purchase our finished product to manufacture new plastic packaging. I can go on and on, but I figure I'll just pause and see if there's any questions.
Well, I will turn it over to Councilman Crandall, and I do have a question for you, but I'll move on to Councilman Crandall.
I'm just going to call you Mr. Joe.
It's fair.
I will butcher your last name.
You can go with Rico, the short version.
The technology is it proprietary to Republic?
It is, but what I would say about it from a technological standpoint is it's less about, we're not big risk takers, right? So what we're doing is we're putting existing components together in a relatively novel way. So there isn't anything specifically proprietary that's the secret widget that nobody can come take a look at. It's the application of existing technologies to achieve a different outcome. And really, to put a finer point on it, you cannot take an orange detergent bottle and turn it into a green detergent bottle in its next life. Something as simple as that. Pigment, it's permanent. And so historically what we've done is we've collected material and we've broken it into a broad product, which is minimally acceptable to end users who want to make something. So you get railroad ties and park benches, carpet, yoga pants. But if we want to make a food grade package back into a food grade package, it needs to just be really specific and isolated by color, by specific attributes. So this is a fine-tooth comb. That's the front end of it. That's the central innovation.
The front end of the process is being able to recycle plastics that would otherwise go back to the landfill. Is that an accurate statement on my part?
Yeah, I mean, absent that fine-tooth comb, what tends to happen is the marketplaces that exist today is buyers are they're looking for something specific and they have to buy something kind of broad and they sift through it, but because they're in the business of acquiring that one thing, anything that isn't that one thing isn't of any particular use to them, but it is to a different application. And so by going through it in excruciating specificity, everything we ship is going to a consumer that's looking for that thing. And so the net effect of it is dramatically higher recovery in total, diversion from landfill, and then also just better applications for the plastic. And really only through this kind of circularity ambition can you ever hope to reduce the fossil fuel extraction kind of process that fuels plastic.
Very good, thank you. So, thank you, Councilman Crandall. Thank you, Mr. Joe. I do have a, quick, whoa. It's not every day we get a guy like you sitting here. So, quick question. Do you guys, do Republic, or is there any capabilities to recycle plastic bags?
It's in the skunk works. We're working hard on it right now. We don't have anything we're quite ready to disclose, but one of the challenges that we have with all things materials is it has to be simple. People don't participate if it isn't consistent, simple, transparent, right? They need trust in the system. There are ways that people have piloted at a small scale, but if you move 2 zip codes over and the rules change, everything sort of falls apart. And so we're working on an approach that will offer much broader solutions for those plastic bags. Flexible plastics in general are a challenge.
That's pretty neat. You charge all county a nickel for every plastic bag.
Baby steps. This is honestly, in some ways, this is really ambitious, and in others, kind of straightforward. We're taking the material that's already in the system and just saying, let's make it the most valuable thing it can be.
Okay. Fair enough. Any additional questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilman Patoka.
Thank you. Mr. Riconosciuto, thank you so much for addressing the council. It's fascinating what you're doing. There was an interesting piece on 60 Minutes this past Sunday about sustainability and life cycle, and it focused on 2 companies, Apple and Samsung, and that they need to broaden their view on the end of life for their product. And it was interesting that you brought to our attention how you address the plastics. And I would recommend to my colleagues if you didn't get a chance to tune in, it was fascinating. All of the plastics and electronics and cell phone devices, old computers, end up in, many of them do. The focus of this piece was in West Africa for sorting, taking the copper out of alternators, and wire, and so that's one way of doing it. But what the piece of 60 Minutes suggested that we, thank you for participating on the back end, but we need our manufacturers to participate on the front end of when the product becomes becomes obsolete, how do we either repurpose it or how do we end its life in a thoughtful to our environment? So I appreciate you hearing. I really don't have a question. I just wanted to share that with you and thank you for telling us about the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Councilman Patoka.
Thank you.
Sure. Are there any additional questions, comments? We will move right along. We will move right along to, let's see, where are we? Page 20. Councilman Katz is not here. Updates to the Jacksonville Community Plan.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to
Please.
briefly, Resolution 3523 would authorize the Department of Planning to acknowledge and allow the Greater Jacksonville Community Association to update the Jacksonville Community Plan in conjunction with planning. The council first adopted the Jacksonville Community Plan as part of Master Plan 89 to 2000 on July 3rd, 2000, Resolution 15-2000. The Greater Jacksonville Community Association has represented the Jacksonville area since 1977, so they're uniquely qualified to review and update the community plan. With the 2024 CZMP underway and the Baltimore County Master Plan 2030 currently under consideration with the council for eventual adoption, the update to this community plan is timely, and the resolution would take effect from the date of its passage by the council, if so passed. Would you like me to tee that one up as well, sir? Yes, in fact, I spoke to Mr. Gutwald before the meeting, or actually as it was going on, and begged, asked him to stay and help with this one. This is an all-council resolution, Mr. Chairman and members. Pursuant to the county code, there are certain manuals, or there's a certain process for adopting manuals, predominantly development-oriented or zoning manuals, and this resolution would adopt the two manuals that are the subject of the resolution. The first is the, well, actually, let's go back a little bit, and Mr. Gutwald can probably speak to this. There was the formation of a policy manual update work group, and Mr. Young can probably speak to that as well, because he was a member. This resolution would adopt the Development Management and Plan Review Policy Manual as well as the Zoning Policy Manual, collectively the manuals.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. I'll just add to this as some of the objectives of what we were trying to do here. As many might know, one of the manuals is over 30 years old. One's almost 25 years old. The objectives here was to try and reduce redundancy in some of these manuals. You'll notice we combined two of the manuals into one manual because there's a reduction, there's repetitiveness associated with it, provide clarity and context, eliminate outdated practices and bring in best practices and current practices that are currently going on, as well as eliminate and or bring up to speed based on current code. There were things that were identified there that there are practices that, as already, the policy is eliminated by the fact of new recent legislation by this very council. As part of the process, we had a very extensive outreach. We started back in September of 2022. As part of our internal review, we had sister agencies, helping us out, looking at all these practices and the methods that are being utilized today, which is what versus what's actually was in the actual policies from public works and transportation, to environmental protection and sustainability, planning. We also reached out to the administrative law judges, as well as People's Counsel for advice, direction, commentary, if you will, on some of the policies that are outlined in the manual. And then we moved to an external process, which involved many different community members, as well as individuals that do this every day, day in and day out, from land use attorneys, engineers, developers, all of those individuals, as well as your esteemed colleague, Mr. Councilman Young, providing great advice and direction as we moved along through this process to get eventually a final document for the planning board to review and approve about a month ago for your consideration. So I just wanted to speak to the length of the process, the many people that were involved. A lot of valuable information was shared. I will admit we have companion pieces of legislation. That is only breaking the surface of some of the things that were brought to our attention. We're doing some things administratively differently just because of some of the information we received as part of the policy work group efforts. So I just, for the record, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer or try.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And less of a question, but also as a member from the council that served on it, just wanted to also, and try not to be redundant, just thank the members. I know we had some of those folks here tonight, whether for this or just for other reasons, that participated. And also thanks to Pete Gutwald as well as Sally Nash for keeping us on task and on board. The meeting, it's almost been a year since the first meeting. As you can imagine, for folks that don't necessarily live in this world, it was eye-opening to some of the things that, one, the accountability of the process that we have in place, but also the redundancies that have been, folks have had to deal with over the last 20 and 30 years. As was mentioned, the development plans policy manual hadn't been updated since 2002, and the zoning commission policy manual hadn't been updated since 1992. So as you can imagine, a lot has changed since those initial dates. The discussion was robust. We also had community representatives and folks, so the public also knows that it wasn't just developers and folks that are working in the industry. It's also community members that are impacted by the decisions that these manuals have. It was amazing to participate in. Thank you to Towson University for providing space to facilitate these meetings. We had in-person meetings as well as virtual options, so that there was a robust discussion that led to the creation of the manuals that have been sent to us and that have been available for review. Also would like to make myself available to any of the council members that have questions regarding anything within them, and also to point out that there will be pieces of legislation that coincide and also apply to some of the changes from the manual that need to take place in order for it to make sense from a legal standpoint. But with that, I just wanted to thank everybody for the participation. It was an honor to participate as well, and looking forward to the robust discussion as we go forward. Thank you.
So the objective in the policy manual is, and the piece of legislation is to address the fact that it goes back and it says it'll be approved. Any material amendment will be amended through processes in which they got approved originally. Well, those processes don't exist. Those entities don't exist, like the CRG or the JSCP. They don't exist. We currently don't do that as part of the practice today. They either go in front of the DRC or they go full process. So what we're doing with this piece of legislation, I hope, and we can discuss more about that piece of legislation because I've heard concerns as well. The idea is to ensure that they're going through the current process, not that they have to, not that we're going to go back in time and say, or push forward in time about the rules and regulations, the zoning regulations, that we are the process that they're going through goes through you got to go through the DRC. At that, if you go back and say as originally approved, what it currently says, that means you'd have to go to you'd have to go to the planning board for approval, and they wouldn't know what they were, you know what I'm saying? Because that's the way it was approved back in the 1980s or the 1990s, because you were doing amendments to plans that go back that far. So the idea is to address the fact that they can go through a limited exemption, they can go to the DRC, they can go use the current process and practices, and that was what was getting changed, because the policy manual tried to address all three of those processes, and it just doesn't exist. The county review group does not exist anymore. There is no county review group. It's morphed into the DRC, but their responsibilities and roles are different. The county review group would approve a plan. The DRC just approves a process. So that helps.
Thank you so much. Are there any additional questions or comments from the members? Okay, it's been a long evening, I believe. Do we have a speaker, Ms. Belcastro?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one speaker.
Okay.
The speaker is Renee Hamidi. You are on as a panelist. You may begin your testimony, and turn your camera on if you prefer.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening.
Chairman Jones, council members. I'm Renee Hamidi, representing Valley's Planning Council. I sent in my full remarks because I had more than 3 minutes of comments, so I will limit myself now to just one main concept, which is transparency. First, I'd like to say that I served on the group that Director Gutwald and Deputy Director Nash pulled together. I was really happy to sit on that group. I have to acknowledge I was in a little over my head. As part of Valley's Planning Council, I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about how to make development go forward. So it was very interesting to me, and I learned a lot. But I wanted to talk about transparency tonight. Nothing about zoning or development hearings or approvals should happen without everyone knowing. Amending zoning decisions administratively without posting notices of requests or approvals of amendments make the process opaque. Spirit and intent letters can be used to request modifications to site plans approved as part of a zoning variance or special exception. The S&I letters might be in a physical file, but they should be available online, as should the reasoning of the director of PAI as to why the request is valid and was granted. We don't know how many of these S&I letters are sitting in files like ticking time bombs. They have occasionally been used historically to hide requests for and permission granted for things that have a material impact on the community. There's a fine line between providing an avenue to get things done expediently and providing an avenue to get things done that might be opposed by the community if they knew about it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and we appreciate your comments very much. We have another speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, my apologies. I missed this on his registration. Jason Vittori also registered to speak on this resolution. Mr. Vittori.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, thank you very much. Jason Vittori with Smith, Gilday & Schmidt. Again, I am coming to speak regarding the manuals. My issue with the manual, it's not an issue with the manuals. I don't have any substantive comments about something in the manual, but it's the same issue I had with the bill regarding the signage. And that is, if I have a client that is getting ready to file a development, come the effective date of this resolution, which is Monday, if it gets passed, it would be effective that date forward. I get it for any client that's getting ready to file a concept plan and go through the full development review and approval process or utilize the limit exemption process by going to the DRC. But for a project that's been going through the development process for at least a year or something, perhaps agencies have reviewed things and there are different policies in this manual versus the old manuals. And as far as their applicability, I'm looking for some kind of retroactive date for when, going forward, those policies would be applied versus the old policies that are currently being reviewed. Because at some point, there has to be a cutoff, and it's either from not having filed yet to having obtained vested rights, as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman. But somewhere through there, that whether it's a development plan has been filed and it's being considered at this point, because a concept plan, or you haven't even filed the development plan or a concept plan. I don't know what that exact timing is. If it's a petition, in the case of the zoning manual, if it's a petition for zoning hearing has been filed and relief has been obtained, somebody could theoretically, when you come to permit, the Department of Permits, Approvals, and Inspections could say, well, we have a new policy manual, and you obtained a relief from the old policy manual. Now we have this new policy manual, and you have to go get relief all over again. And I think that would be wasteful of resources. So I would encourage you to put some kind of thing, applying it from some filing point forward, whatever that is. I've spoken with Mr. Gutwald, and I think he doesn't disagree with me necessarily, that somehow it should be applicable going forward. I just find when it just says the effective date, that runs into the same issues that the appellate courts have found as far as retroactive applicability of changes, substantive changes in law. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vittori. Are there any questions or comments from the members? Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate everybody hanging in there. I do believe that will conclude our business for today.
The only thing I wanted to add, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, is
sir.
the bills that Mr. Gutwald referenced, sort of the updates that kind of coincided with these manuals. They were introduced last Monday, so they'll be coming up in the next 2 weeks for vote.
Okay. Are there any additional questions or comments from the members? Okay. Everybody have yourself a good evening. We'll see you next week.